What causes tiredness in Chinese medicine? There's actually two very distinct types of tiredness, and how they're treated and how we go about thinking about those things is very different. And there's lots of self-help stuff you can do for those two different types of tiredness. So let's discover that in this episode together. Welcome to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. My name is Hopkinson. I'm a herbalist, I'm an acupuncturist, and I'm a know-all. I'm not really. I'm a bit of a know-it-all. I just like to make Chinese medicine fun and easy, hopefully, to relate to and to help you understand Chinese medicine. So maybe you've had a diagnosis of spleen qi deficiency or liver qi stagnation. They're the two most common diagnoses that are given for tiredness in Chinese medicine. There's other ones, kidney yin deficiency, kidney yang deficiency, all these kinds of things. We're going to talk about that in this video. And this channel is mostly for people that are interested in learning about understanding Chinese medicine for themselves. You're seeing a practitioner, you're seeing a herbalist, an acupuncturist. You're interested in maybe studying Chinese medicine. It's not a video for practitioners. It's not a channel primarily for practitioners. But if you are here and you're watching it, great. Enjoy. Hopefully you enjoy it. So tiredness, essentially, let's define it as having low energy or not enough energy. Feeling like you could do with a bit more energy. It could be from a spectrum of that. It could be a spectrum of like feeling exhausted and not being able to do anything at all. So these are very different things that people can experience, and they often have that same umbrella of tiredness. I just feel tired. And it could be so tired that you have to lie down, you have to have a sleep in the day, versus so tired, like not that tired, but you just feel like I could do with a bit more energy. So what are the differences in these tirednesses, in these types of things? There's two main reasons why we can get tired in Chinese medicine. One is that you don't have enough qi or energy. So Qi, qi, the word is qi, sometimes pronounced C-H-E-E. Not enough energy, meaning not enough resource, not enough function to do the jobs that your body needs to do. So it's deficient. And that's one type of diagnosis, deficiency. Another reason why people might feel tired is what we call qi stagnation or stuck energy. So it's not that you don't have enough energy, but because it's blocked and stuck, it can't do its job, it can't do its function. So both of these things is like the qi or the function can't do its function, right? One is because it's blocked and stuck, and the other because there's not enough there. So it's like if you had a candy ball machine, just any kind of machine, right, that dispenses something, a vending machine, let's say, that is going to, you put your dollar in and the candy comes out. We'll just say candy, anything could come out. And you put your money in and the machine gets stuck, and you're like, you're getting angry at it probably. You're banging on the machine. Lots of people have experienced this frustration because often when you're using one of those vending machines, you're really, really hungry and you're desperate. You often see these showed in movies where people are in a hospital and there's no other food around and they've been there for hours and hours and they're like, I put my last dollar in the machine and I can't even get a candy bar out. Like, my life is over. So does it mean that there's a lack of candy bars there or chocolate bars there? No, it's just the machine is stuck. There's a stuckness, there's a blockedness there. Versus it's run out. Okay, you put your money in, you can't see what's there and you thought there was something there and there's nothing there to give. That's deficiency. So there are two very different types of causes, two very different types of reasonings. And one is seemingly, obviously, easier to treat than the other. It's easier to treat the blockage and the stuckness than it is to treat the deficiency. It's a different kind of treatment. So when we have qi stagnation, most of the time the diagnosis is going to be liver qi stagnation. And what that implies is that the functional aspect of moving qi belongs to the wood element. It belongs to the liver. So the liver is part of the wood element. That is not working properly. So it should be moving and flowing in all four directions. And when it's not, you get stuck. Now, how do you know you've got stagnation of qi versus deficiency of qi? It's very easy. The main symptom is going to be if you feel so tired you have to lie down in the day, that is not stagnation, right? That's more deficiency. So a stagnation type of chi person, a chi stagnation situation, isn't going to be so tired they need to lie down. That's for one. Okay. The other one is, when you do exercise, do you feel better from exercise or worse from exercise? So if you feel better from exercise, what that means, you go for a walk, you go for a run, you do it, even do a stretch, like that sighing is your body's natural way of trying to release that stagnation. And it's actually trying to release your diaphragm muscle, trying to open things out so you get a better breath, you get more movement going on there. So if you do anything that promotes that kind of a movement, walking, swimming, running, jogging, anything, punching even, right? Something you do, yoga, and you feel better from that, that's tending towards chi stagnation. Now, along the journey of life, people can have a bit of both going on. So they can have some chi stagnation, and that means they will say, well, most of the time when I go to the gym, I feel better, or if I go for a walk, I feel better. But if I wouldn't have enough energy to do that more times, or sometimes I feel tired also from that. So that's not purely just chi stagnation then, it's also some kind of deficiency going on, as well as the stuckness, as well as the stagnation. So if there's purely just stagnation, what will happen is, if that person forgets to do, or they get too busy to do their regular exercise, they will tend to get more tired. They will tend to get more sluggish. And it's not so much a tiredness like that fatigue. Like I said, it's not that tiredness, you've got to lie down. But they feel sluggish. They just don't feel as good. And they might find themselves sighing a lot, like that. And they might find themselves just feeling blah, feeling not good. And then when they do some exercise, they'd be like, oh, I actually feel so much better. I didn't realize I would feel better. Now, there's some other things that move stagnant chi as well, and I have done video on just chi stagnation, so you can go and watch that if you want to kind of delve deeper into this. But what else moves chi? Okay, exercise moves chi. Singing, laughing, these things that are opening, again, this top part, the releasing the diaphragm, that helps move chi. Okay, so those things are good for stuck energy. Pungent foods, so coriander, ginger, garlic, mint, basil, lemongrass, I think I said ginger already, cinnamon. These kinds of foods also have that opening and spreading movement. Now, we don't want to have so much pungent that we're sweating. So I'm talking like, you have a big curry and you're sweating from that curry. That's too much pungent. That's not really going to be, it's going to be detrimental to you to sweat too much from lots and lots of pungent foods all the time. But a little bit of pungent kind of moves that energy. So what you could do is you could cut up some spring onions, I think they're good, chives, or those kinds of things, on your scallions is what the Americans call them. In Australia, we call them spring onions. Cut those up and put them freshly on your food. Cook with ginger, cook with garlic, cook with, have some tea that's mint or basil. I don't know if you'd have a basil tea, but you put those things in your food, and often those herbs are like fresh herbs. You don't need to really cook them too much. Just have them lightly, mixed into the food just before you eat it. That kind of stuff is good. So that's all part of moving chi, moving stuck energy. We can go a layer deeper into that, and I might save that for the end, where we might talk about things like purpose and creativity and things like that. Now let's get on to the other type of reason why you might have tiredness, which is more deficiency. So this is where your body doesn't have enough. It's lacking the resource. So you would feel much more sleepy, not just tired, but you feel like, oh man, I could just lie down. And the worse that is, the more deficient you are, the more you're going to have to lie down, the more you're going to need to lie down. And it's almost like that, why do you need to lie down? Because that lying down, actually, when you lie down flat, all the blood perfuses your organs more because it's not needed in your limbs. So it's just like a natural way of your body conserving its energy. Like right now I'm sitting, so I'm having less energy, although I'm moving my hands around like a like a windscreen wiper here. There's less energy needed certainly in my legs, but were I to stand up, the body's like, oh, we need blood flow in the legs. So when that happens, there's less blood flow going to the organs. So when you lie down, this is why in Chinese culture they have lying down, sleepy time, naps, as a main part of health and society. Like, you have I don't know if many people know this, because I didn't know it until I went to China, but in the afternoon after lunch, everyone has a sleep. You go past a roadside construction place, everyone's lying down having a sleep. You go to a train station, people are lying down in the station. Like, it's just natural. Like, you go to a market and you try to buy something at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's no chance of that. Like, the clothing market, for instance, they're just going to be lying down on the sacks of clothes in the market. Like, it's just tools down tools, we'd say in Australia, right? So people just lie down and have a nap, and it's just it's the siesta, right? That's a big part of Italian culture or other cultures. We've kind of lost that in our Western culture, because, that's not as productive. That's not really as productive as let's just work all day long. It's kind of what we do. And look, I'm guilty as charged of that as well. But this idea of lying down returns the blood. In Chinese medicine, they say it returns the blood to the liver, and that rejuvenates, that replenishes blood more. So that's good. So that's good in a health sense to do that. But if you need to do that, you have to do that. You can't function without doing that. That's a bigger sign of deficiency. Generally, people who are more deficient will not feel good from exercise. They might feel good from some light exercise. And I'm not saying don't ever do exercise, because there's always that need for us to move chi as well. But the more deficient a person gets, the more they don't feel good from exercise, and they feel that then they don't have the energy to do the exercise. And I'm talking someone who's very, like, let's say someone's got a cardiac disease where their heart and their lungs are failing. You can imagine that person not being able to move around very much. Like, even a little bit of effort kind of really tires them out. A little bit of, getting puffy and that kind of thing. So that would be at the very, very end of the extreme of the spectrum of being deficient. So before we get there, people might have conditions like chronic fatigue syndrome or post-viral fatigue syndrome. And they're like, I just don't feel as, like, I just feel lacking of energy. Like, yeah, I could have a bit of a sleep in the day, but I don't always do that, or I don't need to do that. What are the other symptoms that would happen? So before that needing of sleep, often what happens is our gut health suffers. So in Chinese medicine, it relates to the spleen energy, or the lung and the spleen connection, which is what we call tie-in. Now, we don't need to worry about what that means. Just don't worry about that. It just sounds like any old Chinese word. But that is the correlation between fluid metabolism with your lungs and your digestion. So you would have heard about the spleen chi deficiency, no doubt, if you're a veteran of this channel and you love watching my videos about dampness. It's just such a common TCM diagnosis, spleen chi deficiency. So what does that mean? It means the function of your digestion, the core of the digestion, isn't working well. So you can't separate the pure and impure foods properly. And then you're literally just not able to absorb the nutrition that your body needs. So the main symptom you'll have is diarrhea, loose stools, or some kind of alternating, like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, where you've got maybe a bit of pain, a bit of cramping, a bit of some days it's normal, then it's loose, and then it could be constipated, this kind of stuff. So a disruption there of the bowels. That means there's something buggered up with the spleen chi system, the spleen digestive system, right? It's not working properly. And then certainly fluids aren't being metabolized properly if you've got loose stools, and then sometimes dryness with constipation and things like that. So usually it has a progression of loose or less formed stools, then looser. And by looser, I mean, or less formed, it might be sticky, like a lot of wiping or something like that, and just less formed. And then it can become very loose, or on the tendency to have diarrhea or watery stools, or even undigested food in the stools. And they're all sort of progressions of it getting worse and worse. So in Chinese medicine, especially for herbal medicine, that's probably its main place to shine. Out of these two things, like for chi stagnation, that would be acupuncture's place to shine, as in people who have chi stagnation generally feel really good after an acupuncture treatment, because it's similar to exercise. It just kind of moves their stagnant chi, and they're like, oh, I feel so great, I feel amazing. Whereas with deficiency conditions, sometimes people can actually feel even worse after acupuncture, because it's kind of stirred up the little bit of resource that they do have, and they can feel tired. They can finish the treatment and feel like wiped out even, or, exhausted, especially if the practitioner uses too many needles on them, like as in not too many needles as in forever too many needles, but for that person it's too many needles. So sometimes on those kinds of patients I might only use 2 or 3 needles, like maybe 4 needles on them, like 1 on each hand and 1 on each foot and maybe 1 on the head. So let's say 5 in total. Like that's not very many for an acupuncturist. Sometimes we might use 20 or 30 even, depends on the kind of practitioner that you are, what sort of thing you do. So what I'm getting at is the deficiency type of tiredness could be spleen chi deficiency, could be liver blood deficiency is another common one. So it could be some kind of chi deficiency, blood deficiency, yin or yang deficiency. Now, how those manifest in terms of other symptoms are different, but the core symptoms of the digestion not being great, the loose stools, is a common thing for the chi deficiency, right? In TCM, they have this diagnosis of kidney deficiency being sort of the underlying, like everything's deficient almost, right? Because we think of your kidneys in TCM as the generator of your body, right? As in, you don't live with your house. If you've got a generator, it's a backup generator. You only turn that on in the emergency time. Like all the power's gone out, so yeah, you turn the generator on. But you don't live with that generator on all the time. So if people are kidney deficient, they might be living with the generator on and not realising that all the while, meanwhile, the fuel in there, the petrol is getting less and less. And there's not much reserve in the tank. So your kidney energy is kind of considered like the reserve of your body. So what can we do about treating this, right? I know you're asking that. I've talked about the chi stagnation because that's the easier one to treat, to self-treat or self-manage. The deficiency conditions generally need herbs. Like people would feel heaps better if they got on to Chinese herbs than if they didn't, because they need that extra supplementation. But in general, you want to do these things for supporting your body. One is eating the mostly warm, cooked and moist foods, staying away from cold, dry and raw. So that's going to support the spleen chi, the spleen function. The next thing we want to do is start adding stuff into the diet that's nourishing, that's warming. So you can cook with ginger, you can cook with meats or meat stock, bone broth. Those kinds of things are going to be nourishing. So they're blood nourishing. So even if you've got chi deficiency, you can still get in there and nourish the blood with those things, because it's kind of a flow-on effect, right? Now, we didn't really talk too much about blood deficiency, but if a person had blood deficiency, they'll tend to have more things wrong with their skin, like dry skin, itchy skin. Maybe if they flared up, they might get that kind of stuff, like skin conditions or stuff like that. They would tend to have much more scanty periods or very heavy bleeding, something wrong with their menstrual cycle. That's a blood area, obviously. It's relating to blood, but things to do with your uterus, like that, dysfunctions there could be part of it. Sleep issues, right? And that brings me to the next part we can kind of intervene. So the first part we can intervene on things would be diet. The second part for tiredness from a deficiency would be your sleep. So whatever you can do to make your sleep better, you want to do that. If you know how to make your sleep better, you want to do that. So here's some things, not all the things, but here's some of the things you can do. So try to stay away from the bright light and blue light, which is coming from your phone and things like that, at night. So you want to keep the light low in the house if you have trouble falling asleep. Try and stay away from alcohol too late at night, even though some people use that to fall asleep. It can have a twosome effect. So what can happen is you drink the alcohol, you might fall asleep easier because of the alcohol, but then you've got this kind of digesting the sugars, and then you might have real vivid dreams or disturbance of the sleep in the night, depending on how much you've drunk and things like that. I'm sure people have had a very restless night if they're hungover. They're going to be hungover eventually. That kind of stuff. So you want to try to avoid too much, obviously, stimulants, right, later at night as well, like coffee, because that's just going to keep you up. So those kinds of things. Now, keeping your room as cool as possible is good, not freezing, but keeping it cooler, and then having a blanket on you. Most people tend to sleep better in a cooler place than they do in a hotter place. So it depends on, where you live and things like that. Like, it's sometimes hard to, people can't manage, they can't change these things. It depends on, what you have and where you live. Like where I live in Perth, it gets very hot in summer, and some houses I've lived in, it's impossible to cool it down. It's just horrible at night. You're just sleeping in the heat. You just have to, right? Whereas if you have aircon or better insulation, you don't have to worry about that as much. So those things. Now, the darker and the quieter it is, the better. Now, if you can't change that environment because you live in the city and it's very noisy and you don't have blockout curtains or something like that, get some earplugs that you can wear when you're sleeping. There are these things available that are soft and they don't hurt your ears when you're lying down on them, and have a cloth over you, one of those matte mask things. That kind of stuff will be much better than allowing that sound and that light to come in, because you won't have as good a quality of sleep. So sleep is the second one that we can intervene on. One is our diet, second is our sleep. And then thirdly is our breathing. So things where you do breathing exercises. When you're doing your exercise, like as in, let's say you're very tired, you're on the deficient side, because that's what we're talking about, and you think, I can only do a little bit of walking before I feel, too exhausted. So just do that little bit of walking. And when you're walking, you want to concentrate on your breathing. So you want to sort of open up your lungs, literally do exercises like this, open your chest. You see people do this in China a lot when they're walking, like doing chest opening exercises, like just walking back and forward like that to sort of open and stretch that area. Doing meditation, doing deep breathing exercises, even stuff like Wim Hof breathing, these kinds of things can be really great to strengthen our lungs and promote like proper deep breathing, and that oxygenates things. So they're the three ways we can kind of intervene. And out of the different things that can be used, acupuncture is better for chi stagnation. I'm not saying it can't help deficiency. It can be used for that, but it takes more treatment. It's longer. And if we are going to use acupuncture for deficiency, you're going to get much better results if the practitioner uses moxibustion as well as acupuncture. Now, many practitioners don't use moxa because of the smokiness, because of the smell. Sometimes their clinics prohibit that, so you might need to seek out a practitioner that does that, or ask them explicitly, can you do moxa for me? Can we try moxa? Is that something that might help me? So I've had patients ask me those questions, and I've said, look, that's not really that useful for you, because they've read about it, and I'm happy that they're asking me. They might say, oh, Marie, I've heard about cupping, would that be good for me? And we have to have a bit of a conversation, because sometimes those things aren't good for you. Like it's too many things, or it's, too overstimulating. So pay attention to what your practitioner says. Hopefully they've got, they're going to give you an ethical answer as to why that is or isn't useful for you. But in general, moxa is a better way to treat deficiency, because it's going to help to warm the yang, which is the core dysfunction going on in a deficiency. We need that warmth. We need that. That's acupuncture's way of tonifying, is moxibustion. Other than that, it's herbs. Okay. Other than that, it's diet. So herbs and diet have much more of a similarity here than acupuncture and herbs, because they're both working on something you take internally, and it kind of like provides substance. When you're deficient in substance, you have to make substance. So that's why I was saying the bone broth and the meats and things like that are a really helpful part of the diet. There's other foods that you can use specific to those different deficiencies, and I have different videos on them. So there's a video that I've got for vegan blood deficiency, which has got foods for those things, right? So there are different foods you can add on. This is a very brief kind of overview. So I don't want to make this video too long-winded. So hopefully you've got an idea that there's two types of tiredness, two causes of tiredness in Chinese medicine. One is the chi stagnation type, and the second one is the deficiency type. Now, within that deficiency, there's like chi deficiency, yin deficiency, blood deficiency, yang deficiency. They're all other diagnoses. But it really comes down to the core of your function, which is going to be chi and yang, right? On one hand, and the other functional aspect is going to be blood. Especially if you're a female, that's where people tend to get more deficient, because you've had more history of bleeding, like you've had more opportunities to have that situation go wrong. Lots of children having children, having issues in that area, difficult births, heavy periods, heavy bleeding, difficulty with conception. These kinds of things tend to cause, in Chinese medicine, a blood deficiency, and then over time, like blood stasis kind of patterns, right? So I hope this video has been useful and helpful to you. And if it has, leave a like, leave a comment. Trying to get to 10,000 subscribers this year. I'd hope that you can help us reach that goal. And thank you so much for for joining me on this video. And thank you for your interest in learning about Chinese medicine for yourself. And I hope that you're doing well in your own life, in your own healing journey. And if you've got a question about Chinese medicine, you can pop it in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer it or make a video on it or something like that. I always try to do my best to answer people's questions as best as I can. All right, take it easy. I'll see you again on another video soon.